For pretty much our entire lives, we've been locked in this constant invisible war. We wash our hands, we sanitize everything, we get vaccinated. All of it is an effort to destroy this enemy we can't even see. But what if that enemy isn't what we think it is at all? What if our whole idea of what a virus is just plain wrong? Let's get into it.
Yeah, those are the words that pop into your head, right? We see viruses as these malicious little invaders, these nanoscale assassins that are just hell-bent on hijacking our bodies. And, I mean, for good reason, they cause some really devastating diseases. Our entire approach has been to find newer, better ways to kill them.
And right here is where the story takes a sharp turn into bizarre. Because that thing we're trying so desperately to kill, according to most of our scientific definitions, it was never actually alive to begin with. And that one question has kicked off a debate that gets to the very heart of what life even means. All right, so let's start with the traditional view, the one you probably learned in high school biology. For over a century, the scientific consensus has been pretty clear. Viruses are not living things. Fascinating? Yes. Dangerous? Absolutely. But alive? Not quite. This comparison really lays out the core difference. A bacterium, that's a self-contained living cell. It has a metabolism, to generate its own energy, and it can reproduce all by itself. A virus, on the other hand, is way, way simpler. It's really just a package of genetic material, either DNA or RNA, wrapped up in a protein coat. It has no metabolism, and it's totally helpless without a host cell to infect.
So here's the bottom line. Viruses fail some of the most basic tests for life. They are not made of cells, they can't make their own energy, and they absolutely cannot reproduce by themselves. Outside of a living cell, a virus is as inert and inactive as a grain of sand.
This classic line from way back in 1938 just nails it. Viruses aren't truly living. They're borrowing the machinery of life from the cells they infect. They are the ultimate parasites, completely, utterly dependent on their hosts to do anything at all. But hey, this is science, right? Things are never that simple. Just when we think we have a nice, neat, tidy definition, some new discovery comes along and just blurs all the lines. The case against viruses being alive is strong, for sure. But the counter-argument? It's just as compelling. Because for all the things they can't do, just look at what they can. They're made of the exact same biological molecules as you and me. They replicate, and this is the big one, they evolve. Viruses respond to their environment and change over time to survive. That sounds an awful lot like life, doesn't it? And get this, when a virus infects a cell, it is not a passive process. No, it's a full-on hostile takeover. It injects its own blueprints, demolishes the cell's existing plans, and completely reorganizes the inside into a dedicated factory for making more viruses. It's an active, sophisticated process that feels anything but non-living. For decades, the debate was pretty much stuck in this philosophical loop. Are they just complex chemicals, or are they a simple form of life? But then, in the murky water of a cooling tower in England, scientists found something that would change the entire conversation. They're called giant viruses, and they are not kidding with that name. The very first one they found, mimivirus, was so huge that for years, scientists just mistook it for a bacterium. These behemoths don't just blur the line between living and non-living, they smash right through it. Okay, to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, the mimivirus genome has over 1.1 million base pairs. That's the number of letters in its genetic instruction book. This is a massive code, larger than the genomes of many bacteria that we all agree are 100% alive. Some of these giant viruses even carry genes for metabolism, something scientists thought no virus could ever have. All this complexity, it kind of makes you think, maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. Maybe asking, are viruses alive, isn't what matters. Maybe the more important question is, what is their role on this planet? We focus so much on the tiny fraction that make us sick, but that's like judging all of humanity by its worst criminals. The truth is, way more surprising. Let's take the ocean. Viruses are an absolute powerhouse in there. Every single day, they kill about 20% of all microbial life. Now, that sounds like a massacre, right? But it's actually an essential process. By bursting all these cells open, they release tons of carbon and other nutrients back into the ecosystem, and that feeds the very base of the entire food chain. And then you've got viruses that are basically on our team. These are called bacteriophages, which literally means bacteria eaters. They've evolved to hunt and kill only very specific bacteria, and they leave our own cells completely alone. Now, with antibiotic resistance becoming a huge problem, scientists are taking a serious new look at using these good viruses to fight off bad bacteria. But their role as planetary recyclers and bacteria hunters, that's not even the most mind-blowing part of the story. No, the most intimate, the most shocking connection we have with viruses isn't something we catch. It's what we are. Okay, I want you to really think about your own DNA for a second. The genes that build the proteins that make you, that's about 2% of your genome. Now, look at the DNA that came from ancient viral infections, stuff that got embedded in our ancestors' code millions of years ago. That makes up a staggering 8%. Let me say that again. You have 4 times more viral DNA inside you than you have actual human genes. It's wild.
And don't think this is just some ancient, useless junk DNA. A key protein that allows the human placenta to form, the very organ that makes mammalian life like ours possible, is built from a gene that was originally from a virus. Without that ancient viral infection, human pregnancy as we know it simply could not exist.
So all of this, it just completely changes how you have to look at viruses. They aren't just outsiders or villains or inert little particles. They are a fundamental part of the story of life on Earth, woven into the very fabric of our own biology. You know, I absolutely love this perspective from the specialist Colin Hill. We've always seen the relationship between a virus and its host as a war, but maybe it's more like a dance, a complex, coevolutionary dance that's been going on for billions of years, constantly creating new steps and new forms. So what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Viruses are the planet's main engine for genetic innovation. They shuttle genes between different species, they drive evolution, and they provide the raw material for brand new biological functions, like the one that gave us the placenta. They don't just borrow life, they fundamentally change it. And that leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. We've spent so much time and energy trying to figure out where to place viruses on the tree of life, but maybe they don't belong on just one branch. Maybe, just maybe, they are the very threads of genetic code that are woven through every single branch, every leaf, and every root, connecting all of us.